All right, welcome to the EW podcast. I'm your host, Eric White, and today I am joined by some good friends, some creators of a nonprofit and a festival dedicated to soups and music.
All right, I'll start. I'm Evan Harris. I am the executive producer and co-owner of Soup Fest alongside Jake as well as Wes. I was able to meet Jake through our other co-founder, Nick, who has passed away, as well as some other mutual friends. And Wes was nice enough to jump in and take the reins and really help us out in moving forward and pushing forward with the organization. I am in Wisconsin now, but I had lived in Columbus for about 10 years, and that is the home of Soup Fest.
Yeah, I'm Jake Sekas, co-founder, co-owner, chief operating officer, whatever you want to call me, of Soup Fest. I handle most of the non-fun stuff, and but I get to also make all the cool stuff too. So kind of everything.
Yeah, and I'm Wes. From 2015 to 2017, Eric and I lived together in San Diego, worked together on all kinds of fun stuff that Eric's probably covered a little bit in prior episodes. And before that, we went to college together. So Eric's definitely a big link here. And actually, probably the deepest roots here are related to Glass Duffel. And Glass Duffel was a lifestyle and kind of positivity blog that Eric was good enough to have Nick, our friend who's no longer with us, and myself join him on that little journey. So we flew out to Santa Monica, and we all got really close and had some experience together. And a few years later, I moved back to Columbus. These guys were already doing Soup Fest. The third Soup Fest was kind of on the stove, so to speak. And then, Nick Battaglia, our very best friend, passed away in November of 2019.
Probably 2 days after Soup Fest sold out.
Yeah. So Soup Fest was becoming a thing at the time. And actually, a funny side note was Emily's part of Soup Council as well, but she's my partner for multiple years now. We were kind of pissed that we were being expected to buy a ticket for this fucking soup event. Really? You guys are gonna make us buy one? And then they were like, it's sold out. And I actually still have a Venmo notification of Nick requesting that $25 from me for that ticket. So, so
he wasn't gonna let you slide on that. He sent the request.
Nick had left many Venmo requests slide in his life. So, it was. I'm sure we'll get deeper into the, Nick element of all of this. But as soon as he, obviously wasn't going to be around to help with Soup Fest. At the time, I worked in event marketing. Eric and I have always made content and been kind of in the creative realm. So it was just kind of immediately obvious to me that that there were some shoes to fill. Not that I ever could, but at that point, I was like, not only will I pay for my ticket, but I'm part of this operation now. And these guys were, again, good enough to have me. I think we have something good going on.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Wes has really done a great job of stepping in to fill a void that I think we didn't even really know we had.
Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously get into it, but Wes has kind of moved this to, I'd say, more of a professional operation. And some stuff that we definitely needed moving forward. And he's been instrumental in all of this. So very thankful that he could jump in.
He took our one logo we had and turned it into a brand.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Wes is definitely a value adder. I can agree with that for sure. Nick is obviously a huge link for all of us. He's a huge reason you guys are doubling down your efforts on Soup Fest and the Miklos B Fund, it's called, right?
Miklos B, yeah.
Yeah, Miklos B. And I want to get into that and his importance and, how he passed away, of course, and how that spurred on this kind of invigorated effort with everything. But first, let's just run through what Soup Fest is. What is the charity? What are these larger things that you guys are working on?
Ev, you want to start? The origins of Soup Fest?
Yeah, I'll go origin story. This is all stemmed from a very goofy, dumb thing that was only going to be intended for me. I was just doing stupid stuff and checking in on Facebook, and I thought checking in on Facebook and posting pictures of eating their food is the funniest thing in the entire world. And that was generally just an inside joke just for me. And I thought, what would be the most bizarre thing that I could keep on posting about? And eventually came up with just soup. I was just going to order soup from different restaurants and check in on the Facebook app. Eventually just started taking some goofy pictures, and Jake and Nick started to get in on the joke, and ultimately decided that they wanted to throw jokingly a soup fest for me, a soup festival. I was like, all right, yeah, cool, whatever. And I had known Nick pretty well at this point, or very well at this point. I hadn't really known Jake too well, but Jake was just full-fledged into it. So they threw a soup festival at their house at the time that I think we expected, 10, 15 people. There was at least 30 people in there. I don't know, 8 soups, 10 soups, something like that. You couldn't move.
We could not fit another soup in there if we wanted to. The kitchen was 15 feet by 15 feet.
It was easily the most ridiculous thing that I had ever seen at the time. At the end of, it was an immense success. But at the end of it, we were like, oh yeah, let's continue doing this and actually do it as an event. So the following year, of course, we hadn't done any marketing or advertising, set up anything that we had talked about that we were going to do.
Private Facebook event.
Yeah,
only a Facebook event.
And when we had looked at it, there was 120 people that were going to be attending, and we were assuming that probably 70 or so, 50 to 70 would actually show up. So we immediately realized that we wouldn't be able to do it at anybody's house, or not immediately, last minute realized that we weren't going to be able to do it at anybody's house. So we lucked out with Nick and some connections that we did it at this kind of banquet hall of an apartment complex. There's 95 people that showed up. We had crock pots on crock pots of soups. I had said that I would get music for it, and I'm scrambling, texting people the day of, hey, do you want to come? I got a pseudo stage. I don't even know if we can do music here. So that was the second Soup Fest. And
Emily and I actually flew home from San Diego for that in 2019, right? That was early 2019.
Yeah, February 2019. And that, I always like to remember another part of Evan's inside joke that got out of hand was the local magazine approached him to write soup reviews or something, and he
what?
He was, remember that? Yeah. Everyone's like, no, this isn't really a thing. I don't think you want me writing articles.
Dude, that's that's the Dogecoin story. That was started as a joke, and now it's the thing.
Yeah, it just it snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. And then at the end of that was really where we kind of figured out that we actually had something, and that we weren't going to be doing a Facebook event a week before the event to be doing it. We started thinking on a big picture level of how we could help people while doing this. And we thought thematically and phonetically that Soup Fest, Soup Kitchen, and there's our aim. So, Jake,
so that giving back aspect has been a part of the thinking since before Nick passed. That wasn't something that was just spurred on because of Nick's passing.
Yeah, we decided that it was gonna fill multiple holes at that point, and we wanted to make sure that we were giving back, especially in light of such a dumb and goofy idea that yeah, if we can get some music going, if we could get a boatload of people into a room, we might as well be giving back. And
we were like, we got to a point where we knew for a fact we had to sell tickets.
Yeah.
And we didn't know how much to sell them for. We didn't know how many we could sell. We were like, let's just make something up. And if we make money, whatever extra we have, we donate it. And so then actually Nick and I sat down with the director of this food pantry on the east side, and he's a great guy. We loved him. He showed us around. Yeah, NSI food pantry. His name's Martin. He's a great guy. And we were like, yeah, this is the place. This place is awesome. Like it's like some food pantries, like you have to have an ID or like proof of an address or something. And if you go there, you still need that stuff technically, but they will give you stuff. They'll give you some things that you need to get by, and they'll also help you get that stuff. So if you don't have an ID, they'll give you the resources to get an ID and some food to get you through the day or two. They don't let anybody leave there empty-handed. So that really stuck to us. Like we wanted to make sure that we were giving any profits that we made to a place that felt like they were doing the right thing. So we decided on them. We started selling tickets on like November 7th or something. It was like Friday morning, and we had like it tiered out. We'd never sold tickets before.
Yeah, well, sorry to jump in real quick. Before that, we partnered with the local radio station. That we established a venue, set up through their actual venue, a smaller bar and music venue for what is now CD or 92.9. It was 102.5. We met with them. They were stoked about it. We were stoked about it. Bingo. And I think our capacity there was right around 300, 350.
And this was planning for the third Soup Fest that would ultimately be in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, the third Soup Fest, but what I think we would probably establish as the first real, ticketed event Soup Fest. So we decided to sell the tickets in tiers, and with whatever it was, 350 capacity.
I think it was like 250, Evan. Yeah. I don't think it was 300.
Yeah, whatever it was, we ended up
250. Yeah.
We ended up selling out the first tier in whatever it was, about an hour and some change. And that the whole time, Jake, Nick, and I were kind of, we were hesitant on ticket sales. I think we all knew that we had something, but we didn't really want to say it.
Yeah.
And to watch that just happen in front of us was pretty eye-opening, to be like, okay, well, I knew we had something, but I didn't think we had this.
It was a Friday morning. We were all at work. Actually, no, you guys were at work, and I had to get my blood pressure done and everything. It was like physical. And I'm going in there. I'm like, my blood pressure is sky high. I'm so excited right now. But everything turned out okay. But we didn't know what to do. Texting each other like madmen. No actual work got done. None of us work years anymore. So say that. But
it was just excitement, just pure like.
Got to a point where we had to pause ticket sales until the next day, because we were like, okay, we got to make sure.
Like, what do you think kicked it off like that so hard?
And I was actually I was waiting for a time to do this part of it, because like they said, like the marketing, you guys, bless your heart, great idea, your heart's in the right place, but the marketing was non-existent. Mm-hmm. And as much like I think Nick worked in marketing or communication of some kind, Nick was like a very natural communicator, and a big part of this was Nick's network. He just like knew everyone, and everyone loved him, and he had cheeky, kind of shitty Twitter account that he, of course, loved. And he was just like beloved in the community. So all of this buzz that we had before his passing and before the event was even really a thing, you know, you guys are plenty cool and you have your own friends. And I think that friends involved in like the DIY scene in Columbus and definitely had some music connections. But like Nick was like the heart and soul of this thing, and you know, a big part of why it was where it was when he passed.
Yeah. Nick was like a social chameleon. He could step into any friend group and like in 20 minutes be friends, first name basis with everybody. You know, like that's just who he was. So his reach and his input meant a lot to a lot of people. They were like, "Yeah, best if you say so, I'll take a ticket."
And on top of that, I think we had a little bit of a perfect storm of just the lull. We talk about it a bunch when we talk about Soup Fest. You go through Thanksgiving and then go into Christmas and New Year's, and then there's nothing for a bit. And this kind of seems like the right time, or around the time that you start feeling, you know, there's that gap and that lull that you want to be social. And it's cold out. It's soup season.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's like the Soup Fest as an idea is just funny and cool. Like people were going to be into it without some of this other stuff that happened. So, and it was becoming a thing because, you know, you guys did have something special, and now it's kind of morphed into a whole different thing. Yeah.
So we ended up selling out the rest of the tickets in a couple more hours or whatever it was. We reopened the ticket sales. They all sold out. Me, Jake and Nick were all at a brewery in Grandview, just watching these things fly. And it was just a really happy time.
It was a soccer pub because I live in Columbus, and during football season, you can't go anywhere in Columbus on a Saturday. Other than soccer pub to avoid this Ohio State crowd.
Yeah.
And Nick was a huge player.
Yeah, he was.
That
was his favorite Saturday place.
But yeah, so we all celebrated, we smiled, laughed, and then that was the last day that we'd see Nick, unfortunately. And that's where Soup Fest took kind of a wild turn. You know, we definitely took a turn at that point. Jake, you want to jump in from there, or you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I can. So that was Saturday, and then Monday, everybody went to work. Had like a weird snowstorm overnight, and you know, Monday night was a concert, right, Evan? And
it was Big Thief at the Athenaeum, which I couldn't. Typically I would go to, but I couldn't just because I had to get up for work so early or something was going on. But I knew Nick was going. I had a whole bunch of other buddies that were going. He was talking about how stoked he was for the show. And
he left a denim jacket at my place a couple of weeks prior. And he had texted Emily and I a couple times before the show that he was coming to pick up the jacket. And, you know, if Nick didn't show up at the time, we were not going to be surprised. You know, if he was running late for the show, he had a date, you know. So he texted us, and I gave him our address again. And then I think like the last text was like, it's rainy. It's really rainy and dark. What's your address? And I gave him our address, and he never.
Yeah. So next day, we had a group chat. It was like C-Bus something or other, and Nick's roommate texted, "Has anybody heard from Nick? Can't get a hold of him, and he hasn't come home." And like getting like a stinking feeling in my stomach now again, because like that's kind of what kicked it all off, and like this kind of progressive panic that ensued over the course of the rest of that day.
What did you guys think? What were like? Did you guys have spots that you were like, we need to go check here? Like, what was the initial thought about where he could be? What did you guys think initially?
You went back home.
I went to his house. My office isn't far from his house, and like I went over there, and like I don't know, like maybe like he's just asleep, like maybe he like stayed the night with a girl. His phone died.
Like I said, Nick being missing was like, so like, phone died, whatever.
Phone dies. He lost his phone. He stayed with a girl.
Yeah. My first thought, like looking back on it now, was, I don't know. It sounds kind of naive now, but my first thought was that he was just turned off his phone and kind of, unplugged from the world, because it wasn't too uncommon to have friends that do that for a bit. And then I look back at it now and it's just naive. But Jake,
why do you say naive? Just because of how things eventually went, or
and then we'll get into it, but the second, with the first few calls that I got, it was I didn't really panic too much, and then the last call that Jake made to me, I knew what the call was, so I knew what was going to come out of his mouth. Somewhat
darkly, I know like some Men Are High people will hopefully be tuning into this, but Nick and I both had a good friend. This dude was super popular at Men Are High, but his name's Billy Deitman. He was the fucking captain of the football team, nicest dude ever, smartest dude ever, and he passed away unexpectedly in college due to some kind of drug overdose or drug accident. So somewhat darkly, when I got the first couple calls that one of my friends was missing, and I remember saying that to my boss. My boss came over and I was kind of shaken up, and he was like, I told him what somebody had said, and I was like, actually, I'm kind of fucked up, because the last time I got one of these calls, my friend was dead. So I kind of, I was getting in that space already. And we're going to get here anyhow. We all knew Nick was a little bit, careless at times.
He liked to have fun.
So there was a reality that, as soon as that first call hit, just started growing inside all of us, I'm sure. And it was a scramble all around town. Like all of us stopped working, probably 50 of us, calling his family, calling his distant friends, little niche group pockets of friends that we weren't that close with, the What Fest people and all that. And everybody actually gathered at my place, at Emily and I's house. A few people got there before we officially found out, but once we did find out, I think we had probably 30 people come over, and it was just a sob fest.
That was the first time that I met Wes.
Really? Wow.
So,
how did you guys find out? I mean, I know the story, but
so we got in touch with people who were at the concert, and they informed us Nick wasn't there. Nick didn't show up.
He was supposed to be at the show. He told Wes that he was going to go get his jacket on his way to the show, and the concert friend said he never showed.
Yeah. Well, he was supposed to pick up the jacket, go on a date, and then, like dinner date, and then a show. So he didn't get a hold of the girl to pick her up for the date before the show.
Because one of us got a hold of her.
I think Diego did. And yeah, I mean.
Well, so we have another, one of Nick's longest friends, Lindsay Jarek, who we're all thankful that she was able to play this role for us, but she works in healthcare and has always been kind of a motherly type. She just had a baby, so I don't think she'd be offended by me saying that.
Yeah, we call her admin.
Yeah. She immediately kind of took the initiative and was like calling hospitals, calling, jails or, whatever.
Police station.
And she, I believe she was in touch with the coroner, and that was kind of how we were able to she confirmed it with them, and then let somebody know, and it kind of went from there.
Yeah, that actually was. She didn't want to blunt. She didn't want to, like. Obviously, she didn't want to like put it in a text message, but she said something along the lines. So this group chat had grown 8-10-fold by the end of the day, by the time we got the news. This kind of like makeshift search party group chat, and Nick's brother was in it in Cleveland, and his sister was in it in LA. And Jarek said, I might have found something. I'm in contact with Nick's parents. Like, wait, just.
She did it in the most respectful.
Yeah, and then like kind of everyone got the vibe that she found something that she couldn't tell us. Like she discovered something she couldn't tell us in a text message, and so we kind of the idea.
There wasn't any good news that was coming. I think.
Yeah,
everybody realized that.
Yeah,
and like all of our stomachs sank. And Jared kind of one by one called us all and had to tell us what happened.
Yeah, I won't ever forget getting that call from Wes and just feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. He was really I haven't lost many personal friends. Nick is definitely the closest friend I've lost, I would say. And, you don't ever expect those people to be gone, especially someone like Nick, who was just like you guys said, brought people together. I mean, those times he came to Desert Hearts, everyone he met, he loved him. Like he couldn't even help me and Wes shoot because he was just having too much fun with all these new friends. And like, you don't expect that person to just one day not be there anymore. And it's just
Yeah. I would always tell, when we would talk about Soup Fest to anyone, it was always, I had multiple friends that really didn't know Nick too well. And when Nick would go over and talk with so-and-so, Y friend would say, God, are those two like best friends? It's like, no, Nick just met them for the first time. It's just, it just kind of goes to show.
Parents, like you meet his friends' parents, and then parents would immediately love him. Like it was not like a situational or generational thing. He was just like larger than life and like so charismatic. Like, and he could see something in everybody, make a connection or
like make people feel comfortable.
Yeah. You can make a connection like, oh, you and me are kind of similar because I also like soccer. Or, oh yeah, I've heard I like that band. Oh yeah, I've been to Tucson, make the connection.
And this is all kind of like, as we start to like pull back the layers here, Nick was very open and honest about his like social anxieties and his own lacks of confidence. And like he was super open and honest about it to where we were all like, are you sure? Because you're the most popular person we know. Yeah. But I think that conflict and that contrast within him led to, some of like obviously like a self-medicating habit that we're going to talk about now and other habits. And, it wasn't all self-medicating, we all had like have a good time. And, but I think with Nick, there was always kind of something else that he was either trying to push to the back of his mind or cover up entirely so he could be the Superman.
Yeah. Did you guys, I mean, I've partied with Nick. I know he liked to have fun. I've had fun with him. Did you guys, I wasn't super in touch with him. Really throughout our friendship, we would connect every once in a while. He would come out to Desert Hearts. We were probably closer in those couple years after college doing the blog where we were talking almost every day. But, in my interactions with him, I never felt he had a drug problem. I just thought he always liked to have fun. Did you guys living with him more closely in those later years look at his, use of substances as a problem, or was it just something that he enjoyed and did? I don't know. How did you view that?
So I think that that answer would be different depending on who you talk to.
Both.
Yeah, because most of the time I thought it was, not a abuse problem, but then I would have a mutual friend say something like, "Hey, like you should talk to Nick.
Yeah.
Like you should have a conversation with him, like make sure that it's like okay."
And we did have those. It's not like we're sitting here saying that those didn't happen. So
what were those kinds of things that people saw? Like, was he, like, I'm just trying to get a picture of, was he like doing stuff alone, just at home, chilling by himself, kind of doing that? Or was it, go ahead.
He could get like kind of manic at the end of the night, where he like had too much, like completely glazed over to where it looks not, it's more than having fun. Like, and people start getting worried about you, and as his friends,
notoriously texting with one eye.
Yeah.
But that, again, there were times where I was texting with one eye.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've definitely done that.
It's and maybe we were too close to it to see, but I do remember very vividly a conversation I had with him, two specifically, but the first time, it was a result of, I got a vibe from something he said that it felt like he was maybe reaching out, trying to imply or convey that he might have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sparked that first conversation. We were both feeling pretty good at the time, so I probably didn't land that well. That's why I had a second conversation. We were at a music festival in like a campsite, so the second time I invited him over when my girlfriend was out of town, and we grilled out, hang out in the backyard, and I brought it up again, and he convinced me that there was no problem. And I don't know if he was lying to himself, and so he really didn't think that he had a problem, or
also not a dumb person.
Not a dumb person.
Had test kits, knew everything about every drug, or so we thought. Like, he was the knowledge base for that kind of part of the world for a lot of us. So it was almost,
and maybe he didn't have a problem, but he just one day took the recreational part of it too far.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff that I start to recognize now in hindsight, Nick was very good at it, whether it was social interaction or what. He ended up being pretty open about being, socially anxious around people, but he was incredibly good at hiding that when he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that on a similar notion, I know that he was very good at hiding some of this stuff. And to an extent, as well as what Jake is going off of what Jake said, maybe we were just too close to. There's probably some blurry eyes on my end where you get so close to somebody that you just kind of start to not see it.
Where I feel guilty about it in regards to that is that I talked the talk, but I did not walk the walk.
What do you mean? Yeah. What talk?
I had sat down and had the conversation.
That talk. Yeah.
But after that conversation, him and I continued to do the same things that him and I would do together. I
don't think that, I hear you, and that would definitely be on my mind as well, but I hope that you're able to deal with that guilt, because it's not anyone's responsibility to change their life to change someone else. At the end of the day, if Nick felt he had a problem, it was up to him to take the steps to fix it, and all you can do is be there for him. But I don't know.
And I have dealt with the guilt in conversations with other people who did walk the walk and felt a similar guilt for not being as close with him as they once were.
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22.
The guilt thing is probably a whole nother episode of this.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we feel guilty.
Yeah, I mean, there's other it's a whole mixed bag.
Yeah. And this is a dense moment here. And it's hard to formulate the words. But, on one hand, drugs are a weird thing where they can create bonds between people, right? It's like drinking alcohol or like a social smoker. Like we're sharing this thing, this moment, this, euphoria, whatever it is, that brings people together. But it can also, it can go bad. And it's such a delicate balance. And I don't know, it's hard. It's all I got.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I haven't really done anything since, it'll get you sober pretty quick if your friend dies of an overdose.
Yeah.
So I think, I do want to go into like the circumstances of passing a little bit. So we're not, it doesn't seem like we're glossing over it or trying to hide anything. As Evan said, his drug use became somewhat private while also being really public with us. And that was like certain things. But I guess more of like the mixing was something that we weren't as aware of, and was something that he was doing, for example, on that night. Knowing Nick, he was trying to even himself out. He was trying to make himself not too anxious, but not too chill, and like be able to be talkative, and be engaging, and be charming. And he thought he had the perfect kind of chemical mixture for that. And I think the toxicology report said that he had cocaine, OxyContin, and Adderall in his system, and fentanyl was the fatal overdose. So we've kind of flip-flopped thinking that it was tainted cocaine, and I am kind of more under the impression that it was fake oxy pills, just because I'm seeing that more in the news and that seems more common. We don't know. Well, we'll never know actually what did it. But he was found in his car a few blocks away from my house, at closer to the venue where we assumed that he was maybe meeting his date. So someone found him in his car and called the police.
Yeah, and again, it was kind of a snowy, icy thing. So, like, you start wondering, like, that.
You start wondering.
I was kind of like, at some point prior to finding out for sure that he had died, kind of like hoping that he was like in a car accident.
Car accident. I forgot about that as a possibility. For sure. It was icy and shitty out.
It was like, well, maybe he was in a car accident. He's in the hospital. Like at the time, car accident seemed like a worst case scenario.
We would have all been thrilled if it was a car accident. Obviously.
Yeah. In hindsight, I mean, it would have been awful, but
I don't even know where to go from here necessarily.
Speaking to his personality and how larger than life he was, there was a 4-hour-long line at the funeral home. So if you got there at 1, you didn't get up to see his parents and family until 5. It was the largest turnout that funeral home had ever seen by double. And it was an incredible show of support and spoke very much so to Nick's life.
And it was as much of a celebration as we could make it. Eric, you'll appreciate this, but we put a Kurt Vonnegut excerpt in his obituary, and a priest or someone affiliated with the home read it downstairs for everybody, and then looked at me and insinuated that Nick had written it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no. That's the famous author that Nick's a big fan.
You should have just let it happen. You just let it happen, though. Be like, yeah, it was Nick.
Yeah.
But yeah, after, I guess, if we want to start the upswing here.
Well, I do want to go on the upswing, and I want to get to, I don't know. What were you going to say? I was just going to say that I do want to get there, but I want to spend more time talking about the drug thing, your guys' positioning on it, thinking on it, and then talking about how Soup Fest evolved and the charity. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can stay back on the drug use part of it, because the upswing starts with the GoFundMe.
So obviously this has influenced your guys' thinking on drugs. Something like this doesn't happen and doesn't change you. That's not going to happen. And that's obviously a crucial part of Nick's story. He was a larger than life person who was brought down by substances. How do you guys view the work you're doing now? Does it have a role to play in the world of drug messaging or anything like that? Or are you guys going to leave that alone? And if you're not, what are the ideas or the approaches being considered for that?
So far, it has been mildly left alone. But it is something that we intend to take a stance on.
Yeah.
If not a stance, then at least using our resources, aka money, towards an organization that does have a stronger stance, I guess. You know what I mean?
And I think and I mentioned to you, Eric, in an email, it's obvious that we are now more than ever pro drug safety, pro drug education, everything that could possibly make this not happen to someone else. But we haven't gone kind of pedal to the metal of tying that to Soup Fest, because Soup Fest did have an established link to the community in a way that we were supporting food scarcity and homelessness. And not that it's ever bad to support more than one thing. It to us has been kind of a complex thing to think about and have a firm stance on, in a way that we could be as informative and authoritative as I think we should be on it. That said, you're right. It's part of the story. It's, if we're, 20, 30 years down the line, maybe this event is specifically in support of drug education, of drug safety awareness, and that sort of thing. It's just,
and I think we're just slowly, as Soup Fest grows, broadening our view of what we want to use the money that we raise for. And Soup Fest on paper, these three people that you see here, but in reality, it's a whole lot more people.
It's Nick's family.
Nick's family is, especially with the fund, the charity aspect of it, Nick's family is very much involved. And we take into consideration all these people who are involved with Soup Fest and invested in time and energy and even money sometimes into Soup Fest. We take everybody's opinions into consideration before we distribute this money, So on paper, it's us three, but it's not us three making that decision on where the organization as a whole should take its stance. I think personally, the three of us are of the opinion, if you're going to do drugs, be smart about it. Educate yourself, test your stuff, be as smart as you possibly can, because only you are going to be the one to protect yourself.
So another kind of variable that has made this harder is, and I think Jake alluded to it earlier, Nick just got like a bad batch. He wasn't this drug addict that was like in and out of, rehab or like stealing from his friends and family or, some level 10 stuff. Like you said, dude just like to feel good and have a good time. And it's hard for us to figure out how to convey, don't do that, because, got a couple bad pills from somebody who didn't give a shit about who they were selling them to.
Once you start getting into that talk too, at the end of the day, like, you're your own person. Who am I to tell you what you can and can't do? And I talked about it briefly in another interview that I did, but like, as we all know with Nick was the greatest dude in the world. I know plenty of people that use drugs that I think higher of than, incredible people. It is what it is, and I'm not going to get into anybody's business. You just need to be edgy. The only thing that I will absolutely get at you for is being educated on what you're doing and, safe ways on how to do it.
Yeah, I mentioned in the email exchange yesterday, Dr. Carl Hart. Have you guys had a chance? Yeah. Do you know who that is? Are you aware of him?
I'm not by name. I know a couple of the perspectives that have been discussed on the show.
Yeah. I would definitely, I think your guys' approach is the smart one, where you're not taking on too many things at once. You don't want to dilute the message and the good work that SoupFest is doing. And there's going to be questions, if people, there's going to absolutely be questions, and SoupFest is probably going to have some sort of stance, right? The reason I recommend Dr. Carl Hart is because he is very much about his two big things that he always talks about are getting bad drugs off the street and not mixing things, and that's very crucial here. So I would just throwing that out there as a recommendation. If you are curious, he's someone worth looking into.
Absolutely.
No, I was just going to make a comment that, our kind of tagline is Soup Music Community. And the two first parts of that are very specific, but the community aspect is more broad. And as we grow, I think we have to take a stance on everything that affects our community that we live in or don't live in.
Yeah. And we've already, especially about, with the community function of things, we've made our stance very clear with various social issues that we've jumped in front of and thrown money at for good reason. But yeah, I think, obviously, we all are right there with you on, hey, this stuff is coming. And as we grow, we need to start addressing it more and more. And we're getting there. We are. I think that we got a lot of moving parts and pieces, but I'm excited. I know, and I'll speak for Jake and Wes here. I know we're all excited about jumping into that. It's a scary thing to talk about, but at the end of the day, it is a very important thing. And we all want to be, if there's a minimal difference that we can make, we want to make it.
Yeah. And I just, I applaud you guys for having this like reasonable stance too, in the light of such a tragic thing, because, this is never easy. And there's like that desire to want to point blame somewhere and to blame something. And it's so easy to be like, it was the drugs, it was this, but there's like other factors. And I just applaud that you guys seem to like be processing your emotional damage from the event and also maintaining a clear perspective on, the greater narratives surrounding this topic.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
That also means, though, is that, I don't have something to punch, or like I don't have something to be mad at. Yeah. So, and this can be part of kind of our next part of the conversation. Like, SoupFest is that for us. It's a positive. It's obviously a positive outlet, but like if we didn't have SoupFest to work on it and to kind of help us work through some of this stuff, it would be way worse.